Hello, my name is Ines. Welcome to this polymedia video where we will explain 5 things to do when using hand gestures in an oral presentation. Please let me first provide the 2 main goals of this polymedia video. The first one is to provide 5 tips that you should bear in mind when using hand gestures in oral presentations, and the second is to outline the advantages of using hand gestures correctly. So, the content of this video will be the following. First, we'll have an introduction, then the 5 tips to use hand gestures correctly. Use your hands, use your arms, think of a gesture space, keep your palms open, plan your gestures, and then we will finish with some conclusions. So, let's move on to the introduction. I have a question for you. Why are gestures helpful in an oral presentation? There's so many reasons. I can come up with 3 right now. First is that gestures can help you captivate the audience by getting their attention. Hands are one of the first things we notice when we meet someone, and they help us narrate and structure our speech, and movement makes them very important when it comes to captivating someone's attention. Secondly is that gestures can help you narrate your text and illustrate your points. And third is that gestures can also help you structure your speech. Let's move on to the first tip of the 5 tips that I will give you. Number 1, use your hands. You might be thinking, of course I use my hands. And I tell you that especially when you're presenting in a foreign language, is very often the case that people do not use their hands. Furthermore, we should bear in mind that hands are not just a hand. They have elements in the hand. We have, for example, the palm, we have the wrist, and we have the fingers. And this is important because we don't use these 3 parts for the same purpose. For example, we may use our palm to indicate pause. We may use our wrist to indicate manner, this way, this other way. And then we might use our fingers to count or to point. Let's bear this in mind. Second tip, use your arms. We often make the mistake of keeping the gestures very close to our body and to keep them very small. And this is inefficient because they are way less visible than if we open them up. So if efficiently planned, gestures perform their function best when they're visible because they catch the audience's attention. So please, place your gestures at least at elbow distance from your body. Match the size of your gesture to the distance of your audience. It's not the same if you're talking to someone who's right here than someone who's 10 meters away or in a different mountain. The size of the gesture will change. And third, match the size of your gestures to the type of audience. You won't need the same size of gesture if you're talking to adults than if you're talking to babies, than if you're talking to toddlers or to children. So please adjust your gestures to who you're talking to and what you want to say. Third, think of a gesture space. Thinking of a gesture space will help you organize your gestures. And you'll be wondering, what is a gesture space? Well, here, a gesture space can be defined as the place where the meaning of the gestures is configured. So, for example, imagine a box that you can use to play puppet theater, a box that's here right in front of you. And this is where you play with your puppets. This is where your arms and hands have the freedom to express the structural or content meaning of your presentation. This is where everything happens, and you should visualize this when you're preparing the gestures of a presentation. Number 4, keep your palms open. As opposed to closed hand gestures like clenched fists, open palms welcome the audience into your presentation. So unless you really need closed gestures to illustrate something of content in your presentation, like something that's very tight or someone who punched someone else, please try to use gestures that involve open palms. And the last tip is to plan your gestures. You can plan your gestures by, for example, printing the text of your presentation and marking where you would like your gestures to be performed. You can even mark which are the gestures you wish to perform in each part. That way, when you memorize it, you will associate your gestures to the text. Planning gestures will make it so much easier for you to include them and to memorize them. So, to conclude, hand gestures require some planning and awareness of their use. We have provided 5 tips to use hand gestures efficiently in oral presentations. We conclude that using hand gestures involves some planning, as well as knowledge of how to use each part of the hands and arms. Thank you.